Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us on today's recorded webinar on Preparation is Key. We're going to talk to you today about maintenance safety and preparedness and how important that is as we celebrate Maintenance Appreciation Month. As you know, Grace Hill has officially declared September as a month in which we appreciate and celebrate maintenance associates' hard work, dedication, and efforts out there. For more information, this image at the top of the screen will be an active link in the PDF handout that you probably noticed while you were clicking on the recording. It's on the same page. During the recording right now, none of these links are active. However, they will be in the PDF, so you can gain more information for different links that we have throughout the presentation. So we're very happy to be here with you today. And it is my pleasure to have Chad Mullen with us, who is the owner of Property Operations Training and Consulting. And he is our expert joining us today to talk to us about this topic. I'm going to let Chad give yourself a little bit more information about him. So Chad?
Thank you, Jana. Yeah, I started Prop Ops in 2012. I noticed that there was a real need for some in-depth type of maintenance training out there that you don't always get. We think about technical skills for our service teams, which are great, but there are a lot of things like customer service, resident retention, dealing with difficult situations. I really would always teach my people on my property. I started seeing the value in giving them the knowledge themselves, because the more knowledge I gave them, the less questions I had to answer during the day. So I was able to do that, and I really saw the benefit from it. So I kind of expanded on that, and that's what brought me to start Prop Ops in 2012.
Well, that's great, Chad. That's, it sounds like you have a great background, and I'm going to tell you a little bit something else about Chad here in a minute. But first, I want to tell you, I'm Jana Muma. I am the Director of Learning and Development here at Grace Hill. I have been in the industry for over 25 years. Prior to joining Grace Hill 4.5 years ago, I oversaw the training department of a large property management company, and yes, I started on site as a leasing consultant and worked my way up. So I think that's great that Chad and I have both walked in your shoes out there. We have been involved in every aspect of property management and both have a true passion for training. So, and I know it was a struggle for me to always find, those subject matter experts out there who could really help you in developing your training materials for those instructor-led courses. So, Chad would be a wonderful person to do that. And not only does he have a great background, but as you know, during Maintenance Appreciation Month, we select 20 to 21 maintenance rock stars each year. This is an annual event, and each year we take nominations, and we had 500 nominations this year, over 500 nominations this year. So a huge honor for one of your associates to be selected as a maintenance rock star, and Chad was one of our first, so he's like legendary with us at Grace Hill. So we're so happy to have him with us. If you want to learn more about his Rockstar nomination, this was prior to him starting his company. So see, this is what happens to rock stars. They go out and start their own companies. But this will be an active link in the PDF, and we hope that you go and read more about that. And congratulations again, Chad. I know it's been a while, but still, we congratulate you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So you want to tell him just a little bit more about some of the classes that you offer, Chad?
Yeah, as you can see here, these are my available classes. I do have some other ones online as well. Like I said, there's a lot that goes into the technical training aspect and the customer service aspect. And what a lot of people fail to realize is that we really need to marry those two right in front of the resident when we're fixing something for them. A lot of times maintenance will show up and maybe a resident will be upset, not only at, it took me a little bit to realize that they're upset at a situation, not necessarily at me. So I need to know how to take that, turn those negative things into positive things, And that's really what brought me to a lot of the soft skills type training, because there's so much out there that we can improve on. And, as I was coming up, I went to several training classes on how to fix appliances, or HVAC class, or, there was no class that ever told me how to talk to a resident or how to handle some difficult situations that sometimes we're just kind of put into. So, as you can see, I have a long list of different topics, and they're all really relative to not only to maintenance, but to property management. So, leasing people, community directors, executives, anybody can learn from these classes. It's just that they're brought to you from a maintenance perspective.
That's great, and such a good point that the operations side of it, from the community managers to the executive team, would truly benefit in attending and understanding all of these from the maintenance perspective. But I have to tell you, Chad, my favorite one is It Falls Apart Without Maintenance. You're bottom on the list there, and that is the truth, and it would. And that's why we're celebrating Maintenance Associates this month, because we know it would fall apart without you, so you should be proud of yourselves. And we just congratulate everybody out there. Okay, so we're going to jump into our topic here, which is so important. We're talking about safety. And we are going to kind of start with a general question, and it probably seems like a no-brainer, but it's really not, because we want to ask Chad, how important really is safety in the property management world? We know it's important, but just truly, how important is it, Chad?
Well, to tell you the truth, this is the most important thing that we do on our properties. A lot of the times when we think about safety, I don't think that we look at it the exact right way. It needs to be like two sides of a coin. On one side of the coin, you have, of course, we want to keep our residents safe. We want to keep our property safe. We want to be out on property identifying life safety issues. Once we identify those issues, we need to take care of them and take care of them right away to eliminate the potential for something bad to happen to one of our residents. Another thing that sometimes gets lost because we're so involved with our residents, we need to think about the other side of the coin, which is keeping ourselves and keeping our coworkers safe. There's so many things that we can do, one of which is being sure to utilize all of the safety measures that are put in place for us to use. Maintenance in the service team industry in general, it's a fairly hazardous profession. We deal with so many things day to day, electricity, we deal with, plumbing, we deal with sharp things, power tools, we deal with biohazards sometimes. We all know that service team individuals are usually called on for anything and everything. To be able to identify how to keep ourselves safe and then actually following through on it, we need to be sure that we're doing everything that we can to both keep ourselves, our coworkers, and our residents safe at all times.
It couldn't agree with you more, Chad, and it is one of the most important things that we need to focus on and give a dedicated effort to ensuring that there are some safety policies and procedures in place and making sure that everybody does abide by them, because not only do we want to keep our residents safe, but absolutely we want to keep our employees, our families safe. So great information. We're going to skip on over here to question number 2. So we kind of talked about that from a broad level and perspective. What safety precautions do you feel should be really kind of considered at the community level, Chad?
Well, first off, we need to we need to comply with the law. There are several things that OSHA, the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, has put in place that they require some training for all employees. Then there's other types of training that they require that you do annually and have refreshers on. So, we need to think about that. But then also having all of the appropriate personal protective equipment, having it there and having it available. Things like, first aid kits, goggles, gloves, everything, eye wash kits, anything that, we may need, because we all, like I said, we do dangerous jobs every day. And if you, think about it, every time you cut a key, you need to put those goggles on. They need to be right there. They need to be accessible. Another thing is, like I said, the first aid kits. There's also bloodborne pathogen kits that are much like a first aid kit. That if they're in place, if we have to deal with something like that, it's there. We know how to use it. We know where they're at, and it's a big deal. So we want to be sure we have all our personal protective equipment or PPE, and we want to be sure we have things that, in case we need to use them, that we can use in case we have an injury.
That's right. That's right. No, and that is, we know that OSHA provides us with so much of that information, but it's really hard, and it can be, all the PPE equipment can be a little bit overwhelming. So we want to make sure and provide everybody with the information that they need and what actually is required. So that's good information, Chad. I think that everybody could certainly reach out to you for a little bit more on that overwhelming topic. So, and they can also visit, is this correct, Chad? I mean, would you recommend if they have any questions related to OSHA, they could go to OSHA.gov and get some information from their website as well?
Yes, I mean, OSHA's website is so expansive. I mean, I get a lot of information from there. I also go and get updates, things like that, because they change policies. Sometimes there are things that are happening where, I heard about the hazard communication standard when they did that in 2012. It just so happens I saw an email on that. Like, it's not like my company came to me and said, "Oh, we need to do this." I don't even know if they were aware of it, but it was something we needed to train on the property level.
Right. Right. Well, okay. I find their website to be very helpful too on searching, various topics related to this. So wonderful. Okay. So let's go on to question number 3. Now we understand the importance and some of the ideas of, how to really incorporate safety and be prepared for it. But what are some examples of situations that you feel would need to have an emergency action plan in place? So now we're kind of shifting from we took safety precautions, and there's a great deal more information out there available about the safety precautions. We're just barely hitting the tip of the iceberg here. But now we want to know, what are some of the situations that you feel need to have some type of emergency action plan in writing?
Well, the answer to that question is a little bit complicated. It really depends on a few factors, like where your property is located. You need to think of what kind of natural disasters could happen in your region. That could be anything from earthquakes, wildfires, floods, severe weather, tornadoes. Some properties will even need to have multiple disaster plans in place for different situations. We kind of forget sometimes that at our communities, we have a lot of people that come from out of town or even come from other countries. They're not really climatized to our weather situations. I am originally from the Midwest, where, people who live in the Midwest, if you have a tornado warning, it's really no big deal. I mean, we know what to do if we need to, but as soon as a tornado warning hits during the day, we would field so many calls on what happens, what do we do, where do we go, just in case. So it's not only having action plans for those things, but also kind of getting some information out to your residents periodically, like, in the spring and summer is pretty much tornado season in the Midwest. So we would send out a flyer. This is what you do in case of a tornado. We want to share that information with the residents to try to help keep them safe as well. So really you just need to kind of figure out what are the things that you do need to plan for on that level, but then there are some other things that you could plan for as far as, there's so many things that could happen, but you want to hit the basics and you want to build a foundation. And sometimes the foundation of what you do during an emergency situation is more important than the specifics. If everybody has a role, everybody knows their role, they can kind of go into, disaster mode, crisis mode, and really keep everything together.
Right. good information. And I know that all of these emergency preparedness plans can vary. I mean, because you can go into, again, we're hitting the just tip of this. I mean, you can go into, I come from hurricane land, so we have hurricanes out here, and same advice, you know, we would send letters out to our residents saying hurricane season is approaching. Here's what you need to do to be prepared. And, you know, you need to have plans in place for property fires. God forbid we want to avoid those, but they happen. And so there's so many different things that can happen. And we, you know, really, what is the first step on creating that emergency action plan? So now I think, Chad, what I'm hearing from you is basically you determine based on your regional location, you know, what those emergency action plans need to be. You know, are you in tornado zone? Are you in hurricane zone? You know, are you in the landslide, mudslide zone or earthquake zone? So obviously, based on your regional location, you're going to prepare those plans, and then you would have your standard ones that could happen across the board, be it flood, fire, all of those things. So no matter what the list is, what do you recommend is the first step in starting that list and getting prepared to create it?
Well, like I said, you already covered the regional aspects, and then there are certain things that can happen on any property, like a fire, like a flood, even a death in a unit. You know, having an action plan for a death in the unit, who do you call, what do you do, you know, things like that hopefully you don't have to deal with, but if you do, if you have a direction to go in, if you know what to do, it's a big deal. Really, so that's the big thing. Is the first thing you need to do is compile your property's information. You know, employee lists with phone numbers and emails. You know, a chain of command. You know, who will be called in what order for what situations. Will it go from the on-call service tech to the service manager to the community director to the regional to the area VP? You know, how far does everything go up for which situations? You know, another thing too is vendor lists. Any sort of vendor you would need to use in an emergency situation. You know we have carpet cleaners that extract water. We have, you know, electricians if we have like a utility outage. You know, who do you call and what do they use that for? You know, include like a company representative's name, contact information, things like that. Also, you want to have a list of emergency service providers. You know, fire department, police department. Know where your closest fire department is. Hospital, centers. Know where those places are and have the information there in case they need to be utilized. You know, any contacts that you would need when dealing with an emergency situation should be readily accessible, so that way you can contact them and get the help that you need as quickly as possible.
Okay, so when you say readily accessible, what's your recommendation for that, Chad? Would you have a printed copy of that information posted maybe in the maintenance shop, or would you email it out to them, send it to, you know, is there some kind of new innovative way to make that information readily available, maybe on everybody's cell phones through contacts or something?
Well, unfortunately, it's not any new innovative way, other than it depends on your company and the resources that they have. Like if your company has an intranet, then you can access from your smartphone almost at any time. You know, you can have an emergency section on your intranet. But really, you know, the old school way of a red binder with a big emergency down the spine of it, I usually would keep one in the office, I would keep one in the shop, and then usually I would keep one at my residence, and the community director kept one at their residence. So even if you were just to field a phone call from an actual emergency, you have all the information right there, so you can start calling people and getting things in place even if you're not on site. So, you know, multiple copies in multiple places. And then we have to remember, too, we need to update those things. When we don't use a vendor anymore, we need to update that list. When we have employees, you know, I opened up an emergency binder one time and it had an emergency contact list from 1987. It didn't work. It didn't matter, you know. So we need to be sure that not only when we have them, but we keep them up and keep them updated.
that you just answered my next question, because I've run into that situation as well, Chad, and it's so important that maybe even putting in a plan, that once every 3 months you go through that list and make those phone calls. Don't just even trust what you have printed. Dial each one of those phone numbers and make sure it's taking you to the right place, because you could even have fire department numbers change. Of course, employees, we hope we keep them for long term, but their phone numbers can change as well. So that's a really good point, that you need to somehow put that on a checklist to probably update quarterly. Chad, would you say?
I would say, and it could be a thing too where it's an audited item. I know for some companies I've worked for that the emergency binder is an audited item. They will go in if you do have an audit, check on it to be sure that it is up to date. So, I would say at least quarterly or even semi-annually to have that information updated and just to verify it.
Perfect. Yep, I agree with you completely. And it's one of those things that we're glad that it can become outdated, because that means we haven't had an emergency. But when we do have one, we need it to be up to date. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up with question number 5, Chad. And, is there anything that we can do to prevent emergency situations? We talked about preventative maintenance in one of our earlier education sessions. Today we're talking about how to be prepared, but can we prevent it? I don't think we have Mother Nature abilities, but is there anything we can do to prevent some of them?
Well, there are very few things that you can do to prevent emergency situations, especially things that are out of our control, like Mother Nature, or fires and things like that. But even though there's not so many things we could do to prevent those situations, there's so many things that we can do to prevent the emergency situations from getting worse. Like going through and being sure that all of your repairs and inspections are up to date on your life safety systems, fire alarms, sprinklers, even elevator certificates, fire extinguishers. All of those things that if they're on our regular schedule to keep up and maintain, if called upon, they will help us minimize the damage from a potential emergency. Also, just kind of having a plan in place, having a map with major shutoffs on it.
Right.
We also had some emergency supplies that we would keep on property. We had a large list, but, things like, plywood. We had a few cases of water on hand that, we didn't touch. We put in one of our garage storages. But that also was up on the map. Where were our emergency supplies? The big things that we'd have to handle with, any sort of severe weather or a fire or anything, we had that stuff tucked away, so we always had it. Having emergency supplies and having action plans is really one of the big things that will help you deal with an emergency situation effectively.
Right. Wow. We hate to think about these situations, but they happen, and it's only smart for us to be prepared. And Chad, what great information you have shared with us today. We really appreciate it. Quickly, you can also learn, besides visiting Chad's website, you can certainly learn some more information from us at gracehill.com. It's www.gracehill.com. And we are the leading provider in online education for the multifamily housing world. So we have many essential online courses related to both maintenance and on-site worlds and various topics. We also do videos, quizzes, podcasts, lunch and learns, learning games. So a great deal of learning opportunities for you at your fingertips there. And at the bottom, again, both of these links will be active in the PDF. At the bottom there, if you're interested in a system that can help you manage and track your training efforts, from registration to implementation to evaluation, then we certainly have a solution for that as well, called our Vision LMS. So we hope that you click on that link if you're interested in learning more information. And, of course, we have our contact information for Grace Hill and Prop Ops with Chad. And both of those are active links to our company as well as our own personal email addresses at the bottom there. But I think I want to first of all thank you, Chad, very much for sharing your expertise and being with us today. And we thank all of you for attending and joining us. And we hope you found this educational session informative and you join us for more. And congratulations to all of you maintenance associates out there, and celebrate this month.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you, everybody out there. Go and find a situation and make it safer today for your residents and for yourself.
Great tip. Thank you.